Right. Hey friends. A card pull from the Rainbow Warrior activation deck. This one is called Visionary, and it is about awareness, perspective, synergy, oneness, future, history, and grief. So the Visionary card represents the opportunity to transform and expand how you see the world. Your current perspective comes from how you interpret your experiences and envision yourself. To become a visionary, you must practice the universal flow of change. Surrendering to flow is a skill set that's cultivated. It takes practice to be calm and have awareness simultaneously. So what's happening right now is that you need to picture differently. What do you feel is your biggest obstacle in getting to another vantage? And being a visionary requires that you're able to take into consideration the needs of others in addition to your own, passing through the phases of empathy and grief, which are a rite of passage. Let yourself grieve the loss of one image of success in order to align with success itself. So Visionary, I love that card. I think it's such a pretty card. I might even keep it out at my table for what we're gonna do today. So let's switch down. I've got my sketchbook here. I'm trying to decide which one to use. I think I'll use this page. And I've got some watercolor. I have my handmade watercolor set from Earth Pigments here. Some of my colors are getting kind of low because I've been busy playing with them. A handful of brushes and some water. Some of these brushes are brand new. I haven't even opened yet. So I learned, I didn't really know this because I'm more of an acrylic painter, and watercolor is just sort of something that I would do in my sketchbook more often or just kind of on a whim. But I learned that you should keep your acrylic and your watercolor brushes separate, which is hard for me because I tend to just grab whatever and throw them all back into a big container. So I did buy myself, the beginning of this year, I bought myself just a small little set of watercolor brushes. They're nothing fancy. They're from like the craft supply store. But I'm trying to keep these separate. I guess there's something about the particles in acrylic paint and then that they kind of stick around in your brushes, and then you use them with watercolor too. Like I said, a lot of times I use my art, especially watercolor, for just processing things in my sketchbook, and I don't worry too much about those kind of details. But I thought since I made my earth paints this year, maybe I would try and keep a separate set just for using my watercolor. So I just wanted to share that with you if that's something that you'd like to do. It's not necessary, especially when you're just playing around, but I thought it was interesting to learn, and we'll see. It probably keeps your brushes a little cleaner because acrylic can be kind of rough on your brushes, right? So I've got my sketchbook, I've got my watercolor earth paints, and I've got some water and some brushes. So I'm just in the mood to do some circles. So I'm in the mood to do circles. I've been feeling very connected to circles right now, and I'm just gonna take water and just So I'm leaving a little gap, but I'm just taking water right now and putting it down on my paper. And I'm doing this to ground myself and relax without any idea of what has to happen. And I'm gonna grab, maybe I'll grab this color here. Putting down my first color. And you could even just go real slow and let that color drag. You could do little dots so that you're adding kind of little bits of pigment around in that water and letting it do its thing. This is where watercolor really works its magic, I think, and I find as an acrylic painter that this part of watercolor is exciting, and it also is difficult for me to learn. Like, it's taken a while for me to get comfortable with letting it just sort of do what it wants to do. And then in between, you can just take some water without any pigment on it and add it in and see if it kind of blends together a little bit. Or lighten your pigment. I always find that when I'm unsure of what I want to create, doing something like this is just super relaxing and kind of takes away the need to have to create anything in particular, and instead just enjoy what shows up. Ooh, can you tell? Can you tell I'm being inspired? It's important to do this on a heavy paper, either a watercolor paper or a mixed media paper, so that you can really layer on the water and not worry about it kind of tearing through. I am using my favorite color. I love this particular tone of green too. I think it's just so pretty. It's like right between an olive and like a grass green. So it's a little more towards the olive side, but not real not real dark. I would think that there's so many things that you can start to see in a circle. What kind of things come to mind? When you're scooting around, you can see an eye, kind of just like my inspiration here. I could definitely see an eyeball. Maybe you see ripples, like ripples in an ocean. Let's use, I was gonna try and not use this, but let's use a little. Maybe you see rings in a tree, like tree rings, depending on your color palette. You probably will see different things. Oh, something just kind of showed up for me. You don't have to make it into anything when you're doing this kind of process. You can just let it be circles of color. But if something does show up and you want to bring it forth, you can always do that too. Let's see if you see what I'm seeing. And in this way, I almost want it to be a little longer. I feel like I saw a little hummingbird kind of show up for me. Although now that the face, the nose is a little bit different, it could even be like a little seahorse. I wasn't expecting either. Yeah, it was like once I made this a little bit longer, it started to look more like a seahorse. Sandy sees a seahorse too. Oh, I'll have to see. So what kind of messages does a seahorse mean? I don't know what their meaning is off the top of my head, but when I think of seahorses, I think of them as being sort of magical and one of those things like a unicorn. Like, how do they exist? They kind of had that fanciful thing for me. I've only ever seen them in aquariums. I'll have to look up what they mean. But they've always had a playful connotation for me. All right, I'm gonna stop there and let all of this dry. Since I used a lot of water, it'll probably take a little while before I can dry it. And then I have this great page in my sketchbook that I can continue to work on if I want to, or I can just leave it like this and let it be this sort of fleeting moment and check out some meanings about seahorses and see if there's a little message in there for me. Just want to say thank you so much for being here with me this morning. Bye.